Hello, and welcome back to the Chirping Pigeons YouTube channel. If you haven't had the chance to check out any of our content, please go back and do so, as it would really help us out. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The first series we'll be discussing today is the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Edmonton did finish second in the Pacific Division, and the Vegas Golden Knights finishing first. But I do think that Edmonton is feeling a little bit more confident going into this series than Vegas would be, as Edmonton did beat the Vegas Golden Knights 3 out of 4 times and also grabbing 7 out of 8 possible points, while Vegas is going in with 1 win, which was in overtime, and 3 regulation losses. Vegas is going in with a well-balanced offensive attack, very good defense, and a solid structure all around that Bruce Cassidy did introduce this season and help them get to the top of the Pacific Division. While the Edmonton Oilers, you're dealing with that two-headed monster in Draisaitl and McDavid. They do have a ton of speed, and their power play has been historically good, so you don't want to give them the opportunity to get too many chances on the power play, and then you're going to be giving up some costly goals. For advantages and disadvantages for this series, up front, I would give the advantage to the Edmonton Oilers just because of that two-headed monster in Draisaitl and McDavid. Vegas is also going in with a very deep offense. They have some guys that have filled in the lineup this year, like Pavel Dorofeyev. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. He probably won't get the chance in this series to play. Michael Amadio scoring the game-winning goal in Game 3. All throughout their lineup, they are well-balanced offensively. But the Oilers are too, right? Like, guys deeper in the lineup like Klim Kostin, Derek Ryan, Kailer Yamamoto getting the job done. So I would give the advantage to the Edmonton Oilers offensively in this series. For the advantage for defense, I will give the advantage to the Vegas Golden Knights. Like I said in the past video breaking down round 1, I think Vegas has got one of the most solid decors in the NHL. Even without Zach Whitecloud really having a huge impact and not even being able to play. You got like Daniil Miramanov, and you got Ben Hutton, guys that can fill in, and they're really solid 7th defensemen, like I said, can fill in whenever they're needed to. For goaltending, I would give the advantage to the Edmonton Oilers, even though I think Laurent Brossoit probably was better than Stuart Skinner in round 1. I just do like Skinner's overall game this season. I thought he was really good. I do think that he should be a Calder finalist this year. Then you got a guy in Laurent Brossoit. He's been very hot. He's only got 1 regulation loss in 15 starts, I believe. He's 11-1-3. So, I mean, maybe at the end of the series, I'm retracting my statement and saying Vegas does have the better goaltending, but I do think that the Oilers do have the advantage going in on this one. I think the real question in this series is if the Golden Knights' strong depth can overwhelm the Oilers, or can the two-headed monster in Edmonton just lead the way to the conference finals for the 2nd straight season. My prediction for this series is that the Edmonton Oilers are going to take it in 6 games. I do think that Vegas is going to put up a really strong fight, but I think McDavid and Draisaitl are motivated to get back to the conference finals and have the opportunity to compete for a Stanley Cup. The second series we're going to be breaking down today is the Dallas Stars and the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, a lot of people didn't expect the Seattle Kraken to be in the second round of the playoffs after their huge upset over the Colorado Avalanche. But I think this team deserves to be here. I think their depth all season long and into the playoffs has helped them continue to grow as a team after a brutal first season as a franchise. But I mean, they got 4 lines that can score. They got a bunch of big defensemen back there that are playing well. And they also got a goalie in Philip Grubauer, who has struggled since he's been to Seattle, but he's looking like the Vezina finals he was 2 years ago in that first round versus the Avalanche. For the Dallas Stars, a real question for me is if Joe Pavelski is going to be back for this series or not. If Joe Pavelski comes back, he's going to be going to that first line with Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson. Tyler Seguin was unbelievable in the first round of the playoffs. If Pavelski comes back, then Tyler Seguin's probably going down to the 3rd line, which just brings them insane depth if you ask me. Another thing to know for the Seattle Kraken, they did have the 2nd best penalty kill in the first round of the playoffs, shutting down the huge guns in McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, and they did have one of the worst penalty kills during the regular season. So if that continues to stay hot, it might be a problem for the Dallas Stars. Saying this, the advantages and disadvantages for this series, I think, goes as follows. For forwards, I would give the edge to the Dallas Stars. I think those guys up front, the superstars, Jason Robertson, Roope Hintz, Pavelski, I don't know if you call him a superstar anymore, but he is a heck of a player. I think those guys just really overpower Seattle's top guys, especially if Jared McCann is still out with injury. Like I said, I think Seattle has insane depth, but I think Dallas does at the same time. And I think those top-end guys just overmatch Seattle's offense. For the defensive side, I'd give the advantage also to the Dallas Stars. I think Dallas has got that #1 defense anchor in Miro Heiskanen, something that Seattle doesn't have. I know Vince Dunn did have an incredible year this year, but he hasn't proven to be a number 1 D for over just this season, so I wouldn't put him even close to Heiskanen's category as of yet. In accordance to depth for the both blue lines, they both are pretty deep, but just because of that anchor, I think I'd give the advantage to the Dallas Stars. For goaltending, no question, it's also going to the Dallas Stars and Jake Ottinger. He was unbelievable in the first round. He was great last year against Calgary in the first round. I think he's ready to go on a long playoff run, and I think you could be talking about him to be a Conn Smythe at the end of the playoffs if Dallas is able to make a run. Saying this, I think the Dallas Stars are going to take this series in 6 games. Like I said, I think it's going to be a heck of a series with the depth that both of these teams have, and it's going to be a back and forth battle. But I think Dallas is just got a little bit of that higher level than Seattle does, and I think you'll see them in the conference finals versus the Edmonton Oilers. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, the first series we're going to talk about is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Both of these teams coming off huge highs after round 1. The Leafs, exercising those first round demons, haven't won a series since 2004. They were able to get it done in 6 games against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And on the other hand, the Florida Panthers went up against the best regular season team in NHL history. They were down 3 games to 1. They won game 5, 6, and 7 to claw all the way back and win the series. Both of these teams, like I said, coming off huge highs, and they're probably going to bring that momentum into round 2. Both of these teams do have elite forward cores. I think it's going to come down to the bottom 6 guys. And if the top 6 cancel each other out, those bottom 6 guys are going to have to make a huge impact. As for advantages and disadvantages in this series, I would give the advantage on forward to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It is pretty close. I'd honestly even say it's almost a wash. Both of those teams do have those elite centers, elite wingers on the first line. And I know William Nylander is probably better than Carter Verhaeghe, but he's having a heck of a season and making a name for himself as an elite player in this league. On defense, I'd give the advantage to the Florida Panthers. Brandon Montour and Morgan Rielly, in my opinion, are probably pretty close, but you also have that number 2 guy in Aaron Ekblad, who is much better than anyone on the Leafs as number 2. In goal, I would say it's pretty much a wash at this point, but maybe a slight advantage to Toronto. I think both of these guys have struggled at times in the first round and this season, but I think Ilya Samsonov just overcoming that hump of winning a first round, because even though he wasn't on the Leafs before, he only had 1 win in the playoffs coming into this series. He's coming off a huge high. Bobrovsky was good in the last couple games for the Panthers, but he also hasn't had the confidence of playing the entire playoffs, as Alex Lyon did start in game number 1. I think that this is going to be a great series, and honestly, I do think it's going to go the distance. But I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to take it in 7 games. I think that home ice advantage in the 7th game is really going to help them out and get them over the edge and send them to the conference finals. And the final series we're going to discuss in this episode is the New Jersey Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes. The New Jersey Devils coming off their first series win in 11 years over the New York Rangers in Game 7, while the Carolina Hurricanes beat the New York Islanders in 6 games off an overtime goal from Paul Stastny. Obviously, these teams are 1 and 2 in that Metropolitan Division. I think Carolina has struggled a little bit this season against teams that have really fast. The Devils are exactly that. They are very good on the transition. They do have very skillful high-end players in Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, Dawson Mercer's making a name for himself. The Devils have some really fast guys on their team, but they also have guys that like to get on the forecheck like Timo Meier, Thomas Tatar, Nico Hischier, Miles Wood. But on the other hand, they are playing a team in Carolina who's a lot more structurally defensively than the New York Rangers are, I think at least. They like to play that man-on-man defense that Rod Brind'Amour has always liked since he's been the coach of this team, and I think this is still going to be a very good series. But let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. I think on forwards, the advantage clearly is the New Jersey Devils at this point. Might be a little bit closer of a conversation, but Carolina is without Max Pacioretty, Andrei Svechnikov, and now Teuvo Teravainen after having surgery on his wrist. On defense, I'd probably give the advantage here to the Carolina Hurricanes. 1 through 6, they probably match up a little bit better than the New Jersey Devils do, but also the Devils have had very good defense throughout this year, and they showed it in round 1, playing really structurally sound in front of their goaltender. In net, I think I'd give the advantage here to the New Jersey Devils. Akira Schmid was unbelievable in round 1, only having a little bit of a rough start in game 6. He had a .982 save percentage if you don't include game 6 in this. In Carolina, I mean, Antti Raanta was pretty good in round 1 along with Freddie Anderson. I don't think either team is really weak in goal here. Like I said, I think New Jersey has the advantage because Schmid has been so good. But Carolina, you got Freddie Anderson to go to if Ranta's not good. Then you also got a guy in Pyotr Kochetkov that you could go to, so they kind of have 3 options there. Saying all this, I do think that this series is going to go pretty long, but I think at the end of the day, New Jersey's offense is going to get the most of Carolina, And I think the Devils are going to take this series in 6 games and be headed to the conference finals to play against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm really curious what your guys' opinion on what's going to happen in this NHL playoffs. Feel free to comment below, like, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to stay connected.